Greetings and welcome to our fourth meeting of Connections. As we begin, and as we have begun in the past times, let's begin by first just listening, not to my words, but to God's word, the scriptures, in particular, the Gospel of St. Luke, a text that we have become familiar with. It is the question that is framed before Jesus in the parable of the Good Samaritan. There was a scholar of the law who stood up to test him and said, "Teacher, what must I do to gain eternal life?" And Jesus responded by asking him the question, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" And he replied correctly, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, with your whole mind, and your neighbor as yourself." He replied to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this and you will live." But then the scholar of the law went on and asked Jesus the question, "Who is my neighbor?" That question has become a central question for us at the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. When the Catholic Near East Welfare Association, along with about 24 other aid agencies, had a private audience with Pope Francis in June, Pope Francis asked us to keep, in his words, the icon of the parable of the Good Samaritan before our eyes, before our mission, before our work. And so we do. We try to reach out to accompany the one who is most in need. And we hope that we will be faithful in doing that. And I am grateful for you make it possible for us to do that. One of the things that we are going to be reflecting on this evening, and as we go into these future gatherings or meetings, these appointments that we'll be having, are the different ways and the different places where we're going to be able to try to be faithful to the mandate of the gospel and to that ecclesial identity that we have. I would just like to take this opportunity to also share with you some images, just a few images that I know will be important to you and certainly help you in your understanding of the work and the mission of CNEWA. The first image that you are looking at is the image of Pope Francis as he sits in the chapel in the Basilica of St. Mary Major. It's known as the Pauline Chapel. He is sitting there in front of one of the most venerated images of the Blessed Mother, an icon that is known in its Latin text, and there you see it close up, as the Salus Populi Romani. Translated in different ways, it means the health of the Roman people. It means the protectress of the Roman people. I bring the image of the Pope sitting in front of this particular icon to your attention because Pope Francis has made it his custom to go before this icon before any of his journeys to any of the countries he travels to. And he returns to the same place when he comes back from his trip to give thanks to the Blessed Mother for that help, that assistance that she has given to him and to all who heard him. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up here because where CNEWA has offices and where CNEWA works in the 15 countries where we are involved, every one of those countries has a very deep Marian culture, a very deep attachment to the role and to the influence of the Blessed Mother. In fact, as you will see in this final icon, this time that we're in August and coming to the month of September, the Church celebrates several feasts of the Blessed Mother. We just this week, on the 15th of August, celebrated a major Marian feast. It is known in the West as the Feast of the Assumption. It is known in the East as the Feast of the Dormition. The image that you have in front of you is the image of Mary's Dormition. It is the great work of the artist El Greco, done probably between the years 1565 and 1567. In the Eastern tradition, that celebration of the Feast of Mary's Dormition has Mary going into a sleep and then brought up to the fullness of the resurrection. The dormition, the assumption is only possible because of the resurrection. It is the mystery of the passion, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus that enables each one of us to have a hope in God's final action in our lives. That is, the victory of God in each one of us in bringing us to him, body and soul, not as some kind of a disincarnate spirit. And it has already happened. It has happened in Mary. Mary, at the completion of her earthly life, in the words of Pope Pius XII in 1950, upon the completion of her earthly life, was then brought back to heaven, body and soul. And it is that which gives us hope. It gives us hope because it shows how Christianity is all about the goodness of God's creation, the earth, and especially our human bodies. Every human body is sacred. Every human body is a temple of the presence of God. And so I ask us to reflect on this great feast that we have celebrated. I ask us to reflect as we anticipate the Marian feasts that will be coming up in September. Example, on the 8th of September will be the feast of the birth of the Blessed Mother. In the Eastern tradition, it is going to be the birth of the Theotokos, Theotokos being the Greek term for the God-bearer. This was a very interesting and a very important development in how we understand Jesus and how we understand Mary that was discussed, that was argued, and was resolved in one of the early councils of the church in the 5th century, the Council of Ephesus, where Mary, recognized as the God-bearer, was recognized as the Mother of God. In much the same way, we are asked to be God-bearers. We are asked to be those agents of God who bring God's presence, who bring God's hope, who bring God's mercy, which was the answer of Jesus in the Gospel of the Good Samaritan, to those places we are sent, to those places we travel, to those places we go. So let me just take the time here this evening to bring you up to date on a few more items and news items concerning the work and the mission of CNEWA. Before I begin, I just want to invite anyone who wishes to submit a question to please do so. Questions that are submitted during the time of my presentation, I will make every effort to answer them at the end of the presentation. So a few comments then with regard to the news from CNEWA. First, I had mentioned at the last meeting we had back on July 13th, about the great achievement, and it was the great achievement that CNEWA had been recognized for with the 44 press rewards that CNEWA was awarded at the annual meeting of the press group. We were awarded those particular credits for the great work of our quarterly magazine, One. We were awarded also particular prizes we received 12 first place awards. The blog was recognized for the great work that the blog has done and continues to do, particularly in its coverage of topical news and of social justice issues. This is an important part of the mission, the educational mission of CNEWA. We were recognized for our multimedia coverage of social justice issues, particularly concerned with the pandemic. And so I invite you to go to our website, to go to the blog, to read the magazine, so that CNEWA can make its own effort to keep our donors and our readership informed in the best way that we can, and because we have sources on the ground who are reporting to us, and keep you, the donor, who constitutes the very heart of what CNEWA is able to do, so that you be informed. It was in that same section and that same time when we received those 44 awards. Included among those who received awards was CNEWA's own Michael Lasavita, who was named the Communications Director of the Year, an individual excellence category for which CNEWA is very proud. Michael has served CNEWA for over 30 years and has received full national recognition for the work that he does. In addition, with regard to individual awards, Awards were given also to Laura Iarachi as Editor of the Year and to Paul Grillo as the Designer of the Year. I mention these awards. I mention this because we take very seriously here at CNEWA the work that we are about in the communication and in the dissemination of correct information. Let me come to another item, and that is the ongoing support, thanks to you, the most generous donors, the ongoing support that CNEWA has given to the horrific suffering that has been endured by the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian refugees, those who have gone to the neighboring countries, and the Ukrainian IDPs, those who have remained in Ukraine. In our sixth distribution of funds at the end of July, CNEWA distributed $2.8 million to bring assistance to Ukraine. This brings a total, at the end of July, it brought the total to over $5.5 million, thanks to you, the donor, that we, CNEWA, were able to distribute in Ukraine. And let me add, 100% of your donations went to help the people of Ukraine. 100%. We were able to distribute food packages. We were able to work with Caritas in the distribution of various relief efforts that we were able to bring. We were able to help in the displaced people, the internally displaced people in Ukraine by the work that we did with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic churches of the local regions. We were able to coordinate through the Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv, particularly in dispensing food packages, clean water, and coming to the assistance of children. Both in terms of hospital care, but also the growing need to come to the assistance of children and, in fact, of all people of all ages with regard to psychological counseling, spiritual aid that we were able to give. Emergency palliative care was brought to the patients at Lviv's Sheptytsky Hospital. Again, 100% of your donations to the assistance of people in Ukraine, a total which right now exceeds $5.5 million. Thank you. It was only possible and is only possible because of you. Let me just also come to use the opportunity here this evening to remind you that for those of you who might want to be a little more familiar with the work and with the mission of CNEWA, I would certainly suggest that you go to CNEWA's World. CNEWA's World comes on the internet on Friday afternoon, and it's really a summary, it's an update of all of the things that CNEWA is doing. And I would certainly recommend that you might want to, if you're interested in seeing how we continue to operate in different places, it's that Friday afternoon piece, CNEWA's World, which is going to help you. Let me just share one or two stories that appeared in that CNEWA's World this past Friday, August 12th. One story concerned a trip that I was able to make with our Director of Development, Noel Siglisi, and one of the members of his team, Heimdat Saw, when we went out to Chicago. We went out to Chicago July 18th and July 19th, and we were able to there pray at the very beautiful St. Nicholas Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church with the Ukrainian Catholic population there, praying for peace and an end to the violence in Ukraine. We were able to spend time there at a meeting with Bishop Mar Jacob Angadayev and Bishop-elect Mar Joy Alapat of the St. Thomas Syro-Malabar Catholic Diocese of Chicago. That was also important to us because, as you know, and as I've mentioned, CNEWA's work in India, notwithstanding some of the challenges that we have, remains very focused and remains completely present. We were also able, thanks to the work and the intervention of one of our own, Laura Iarachi, we were able to organize a meeting and go to the Lumen Christi Institute. The Lumen Christi Institute, for over 25 years, has been a great source of intellectual and cultural contribution, both at the campus of the University of Chicago and on a national level with the programs that they organize. So I was very grateful to Laura and to the Lumen Christi Institute team for the invitation that we received to be able to make a presentation there at Lumen Christi Institute with regard to the work and the mission of CNEWA. I would also then like to just bring you on a little tour this evening through the local offices, just to update you on the work, some of the work that is being done in our local offices. Let me begin by just sharing with you some developments that have happened really over the last week or 10 days from our different offices, starting in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, we have been active, and I must say, and I can report to you that in Gaza, on the Gaza Strip, where I traveled in June with our Chief Financial Officer, Tresul Singh Conway, and our Director of Programs, Thomas Varghese, we traveled to the Gaza Strip, and we saw there the work that we were involved in supporting both the local Catholic parish and the Orthodox Christian presence in the Gaza Strip. I can report to you tonight that a leadership program of local scouts came to a successful conclusion after a year-long program, thanks to your support for that scouting program in the Gaza Strip. It brought together over a year's time, over 5,000 male and female scout troop members who were able to come together to cultivate better leadership skills and to cultivate better cooperation and collaboration between Christian and Muslim young community members. What a great tribute we were able to do because you supported us. Also in Gaza, we were able there to develop and to work on a psychosocial program because, as you can well imagine, of at times the traumatic experiences that have been experienced by many of the people in the Gaza Strip. And so we were able to bring assistance there through the local YMCA of Gaza in terms of offering them some help. It is probably the first time that that local YMCA group in Gaza was able to offer psychosocial help for the people who are in need. In addition, in Palestine and in Jerusalem, again, locations that obviously come under the jurisdiction of our Jerusalem office, we were able to cultivate and to bring to a termination this summer, last month, a Christian youth leadership program. Thanks to your generosity, it was CNEWA that was able to sponsor this leadership program for young Christian men and women, and hopefully see in them the future leaders that are going to be the ones responsible for working for peace throughout the region of Palestine and of Jerusalem. I thank you for the support that you gave. In Beirut, let me offer a few comments on Beirut. As you know, it was last year that I had the opportunity to travel to Beirut with our Director of Communications, Michael Lasavita, and our Director of Development, Noel Seglisi, last year to mark the first anniversary of the explosion that took place in the port in Beirut. This year, on the occasion of the second anniversary, when they were thinking back and still looking for an answer, the people of Beirut are still looking for an answer as to who was responsible for the explosion in Beirut that occurred on August 4th in the year 2021. It was something that left people, it was a horror. It left half the capital was destroyed. It killed over 200 people. There were over 6,000 injured and over 300,000 people displaced. What has happened since? Unfortunately, it was just about 10 days ago that some of the heavily damaged grain silos began to collapse in and around the port, resulting in a series of fires that broke out and caused greater damage and greater concern on the part of the people in Beirut. The preservation or what the outcome of these silos has become a significant issue for people there who feel, some do, that perhaps they're going to be, by keeping them intact, will justice ultimately be served because it will bring, hopefully, some evidence of who was responsible for that blast. And it is something that is a matter of great psychological importance, as well as legal importance and ethical importance for the people in Beirut. Of course, the people in Beirut, and of course with our office in Beirut continues to do an extraordinary job in remaining close to the people of Lebanon. When one looks at what the people of Lebanon since 2019 have suffered, in terms of the economic crises that they have been through, an economic crisis that now has left about 80% of the Lebanese people living under the line of poverty. And that's not even to get into the questions of the issues that have been provoked because of both the health and educational systems. Lebanon is in need of our help. Thanks to your generosity, CNEWA continues to be committed to do what we can for the people in Lebanon. In Amman, let me make a reference to Amman, Jordan. As you know, Jordan has been receiving an influx of Iraqi refugees since the beginning of the Gulf War in 1991. We received a large number of refugees in 2003 and again in 2014 after ISIS invaded the Nineveh Valley. The majority of those refugees belong to the Chaldean Church. And what happened? As they moved and that number increased in Jordan, a temporary parish was set up for them. Now, thanks to the efforts of CNEWA in terms of what we have done to receive these refugees and the initiative taken by the Chaldean Patriarch Sako, they have organized the first Chaldean parish in Jordan. And CNEWA was part of the organization of that parish in Jordan on multiple levels of coordination with the local government to secure proper permits and to work in an ecumenical way with other churches so that this could come about. And so I thank you for the support that you give to us. I can also add that we, CNEWA, through the Amman office, we were present at the laying of the foundation stone of this parish, establishing the first Chaldean church in the history of Jordan. I thank you for your support that you give and that the office in Amman was able to accomplish. Let me just also use the occasion of what happened with regard to the work in Amman to remind you, because our work, as you know, with refugees is something that is ongoing. And around Labor Day, you're going to receive our next appeal. In that Labor Day appeal, it is an appeal that is linked to the World Day of Migrants and Refugees. The World Day of Migrants and Refugees is always commemorated on the last Sunday in September. This has been established by the Holy See and advocated and practiced by the Holy See since 1914. When you give to CNEWA for the purposes of this appeal to help migrants and refugees, it is a way in which CNEWA is working in its budgeted items to help those who are refugees from Iraq, from Ukraine, from Syria. So in anticipation of your generosity to that next appeal that will be coming, I want to just thank you. And let me comment on India, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. With regard to the situation in India, we continue to our commitment, as I mentioned earlier, our commitment to our work and our mission in India remains steadfast. We continue to remain steadfast in what we want to do, hope to do, and are doing in India, notwithstanding the challenges that have come to us through the FCRA legislation. We remain in compliance with the FCRA legislation, and we remain committed to serve the people of India. The same, I must say, goes with regard to the situations and the challenges that we have, both in Ethiopia and in Eritrea. You are all very familiar with the violence that has really engulfed parts of Ethiopia and parts of Eritrea. We continue to work in both our offices in Eritrea and in Ethiopia to try to bring assistance where we can to those areas that have really been devastated, where lives have been lost, property damaged, where people have been removed from where they were working. I'm thinking in terms of the Capuchin Fathers in the St. Joseph Catholic School in Kobo, which is located probably about 300 miles north of where our office is in Addis. There, the Capuchin Fathers have had difficulty. The Ursuline Sisters remain there, and we remain committed to working with them. Finally, let me just offer a few comments by way of conclusion, if I may. Let me offer a few comments with regard to some of our friend-raising and upcoming fundraising activities. We have a couple coming up this fall. On October 13th, we're going to have a fundraiser that is going to take place in the home of a person in Westchester County in New York who has offered her home for female artists who are very intimately connected with that important connection between art and culture, the preservation of art and the preservation of culture, the way in which art contributes to culture. This will be a fundraiser for Ukraine. So that's going to be on October 13th. On November 1st, we're going to have a CNEWA art exhibit that will take place at the Sheen Center in Lower Manhattan. And then we're going to have on December 13th, what we're calling our first annual CNEWA dinner. This will take place on December 13th and it is going to be in honor of the chair of our board of trustees, His Eminence Timothy Cardinal Dolan. That will take place on December 13th. It will take place at the Colony Club. If anyone is interested in any of these events, I would ask you to contact us. Coming across the screen, you see there where you can contact us at info@cnewa.org. As we look to the spring and next summer, we also hope to organize golf outings. The golf outings will also be a source of fundraising for us. So wherever you are, if you're listening to me, whether you're in Florida or Arizona or Texas or any place where you think that you might be able to help us to pull together a golf outing, please, again, contact us at info@cnewa.org. I know that the first half an hour is over. For those who wish, if anybody does wish to stay on for a few more minutes, and if there are any questions, I will try to answer those questions. I thank you for your time tonight. I thank you for your support, and we thank you for your prayers to help the mission of Catholic Near East Welfare Association and Pontifical Mission. Thank you.
Okay, we have one question.
Yes,
to answer.
Please, Nick.
2 Minutes of Freedom asks, or says, I like hearing about all these good works overseas, but how can I help them, yet not help with all the problems surrounding us here in the U.S.?
That's an excellent question. And that's really, it would seem to me, a matter of one's prayerful discernment in terms of where the Lord is asking you to focus those resources and those means that you have. For sure, we are all very much aware of the problems that surround us here, and we make no attempt to minimize that. The mission of CNEWA as a pontifical agency is a gospel mandate that is specifically directed to Eastern Catholic churches. And so I would ask the individual who has framed that very powerful question to bring into prayer and discernment where it is that the Lord is asking you right now at this moment to be able to look and be able to donate.
We have a question from Elizabeth Harrington. What else can we do to assist?
Again, I thank Elizabeth Harrington and her husband, John, and the family for the excellent question that they have raised. I have tried to articulate basically three priorities. The first is prayer. No one can minimize the power of prayer, especially prayer now to the Blessed Mother under any of the titles in any of the cultures where we're working. I'll tell you one story because it came to me. I've had correspondence the last couple of days with the pastor in Gaza. They have been under fire. There's been an exchange of rockets going from Gaza to Israel, unjustified. And airstrikes against Gaza, both have resulted in destruction and loss of life. We oppose wholeheartedly this kind of violence, all right, in all forms. Everything in the parish closed down, with one exception. The pastor has kept Mass and Eucharistic adoration going in the midst of the exchange of the fire and the violence. So number one priority is prayer. Prayer centered around the Eucharist, prayer which calls on the intercession and the intervention of the Blessed Mother. Second, that we all be correctly informed as terms of what is going on. The dissemination of truthful information is critical. And third, where it's possible and where an individual has the means to please just to continue with your generous donations to CNEWA so that we can continue to support our many missions. But I thank you for the question.
Okay, we have one from Gary Waxmansky, I believe. Is CNEWA doing anything with Melkite churches in Syria or Iraq?
CNEWA's work is with all of the Eastern Catholic churches. Now, the way in which we go about particular churches, whether it's Melkite in one particular area, or whether it's going to be any of the other Eastern Catholic churches, will really come to us through the local office that we have or through the local church that we have. And so that is the way in which we are doing the work with all of the Eastern Catholic churches. I would ask the question there to maybe write me another email, and I can give specific, concrete information with regard to the answer on those questions in terms of Syria and Iraq. And I will also consult with our director of programs to be able to lay out that specific answer.
Okay, and then we have one from an email question. Monsignor, one of our donors was going over our financials, which we have available on our website, and is concerned about the amount we are paying for rent on our office in New York City.
Again, a very good question, certainly a very good question. CNEWA here in the New York office has centralized all of its activity, and therefore we need square footage that can accommodate all of the activity that we do, whether that's the activity of communications, the activity of development, the activity of processing, the activity, all of the activities of the executive office, everything is done here. That's very important in terms of the square footage and the space that we need. We also have to be in touch with the developing ongoing developments in technology. And that also requires that we are going to have to give a lot of time to that. Now, rents, at least in this particular area of the world, and particularly here in the United States, are going up, as I think all of our listeners can attest to from their own personal experiences. And that certainly is our experience here, that rents continue to go up. The one thing that also links us to why we are here in this place, that is, in the pastoral center of the Archdiocese of New York, is because of the juridic tie that CNEWA has to our board of trustees. The chair of our board of trustees is and has been the Archbishop of New York. And so we are here in this building, and with the rent that we pay, we are also therefore in that rental fee supporting activity of the Archdiocese of New York. So CNEWA is here, as I said at the beginning, first, because of the square footage that is required to conduct our business, to be able to be present to all of our offices and other partners in different parts of the world. We need to have that kind of space and that kind of an operation here. That multiple list of activities is important for us. And I would dare say that given the other options that we have here, we are in a very fortunate spot. We are in a very fortunate spot, and we are in closest proximity to the work that goes on here in the Archdiocese and with the Archbishop of New York, who is the chair of our Board of Trustees. I look forward to seeing everybody in September.